Well, good morning. Today began just like any other day. We're focused on Simba for a moment here because he is the center of today's story. So, today began just like any other day in the realm. I performed the morning rituals of horse releasing and dog releasing into the world with absolutely no complications. Imagine that. Nothing extraordinary, well, nothing notable. The world is generally extraordinary. After the horses were released into the world, came the equally important ritual of releasing myself into the day. You know the one. Showers, shaving legs that apparently grow winter coats, wrestling with hair that seems determined to clog every drain in Montana. Which brings me to the reason of today's video. Simba, the overly exuberant dog I mentioned in the last video. The one that runs the entirety of the driveway 5 times just because. Who had been released into the world as I was performing the oblations required of all living adults in the universe. And as I was descending into the living room, I noticed outside the sliding door stood Simba with this look on his face that can only be compared to the memory of my oldest son. So I must explain here. On this particular day, my son, was maybe a year and a half of age, or perhaps a year and a half, was particularly mobile. He'd been playing quietly and then went into the kitchen because that was where he liked to play with his cars. I had not heard any noise from him for a few moments, so I got up to investigate. There he was, standing by the open pantry door with a box of Ritz crackers in one hand and a handful of crackers in the other, moving right to his face, which was covered with crumbs. I remember standing there, trying very hard not to laugh at the image he produced, and watched as he silently put the crackers back in the box, put the box in the pantry, and closed the pantry door. Well, Simba wore that exact same expression on his face that my son had. He had been caught, and I looked at the tomato plant that I had been nursing. Yes, those tomato plants. Nursing and watering and caring for and keeping away from predatory and tomato-killing deer and all the ripened cherry tomatoes that I had been saving for the exact perfect moment were gone. Eaten. And Simba, that one, was the culprit. He did have the decency to look contrite, or caught, if that could be called a look. So I found myself more than a little bit frustrated, angry, irritated, bothered, and pissed off. I went outside, and Simba laid down as I yelled at him that he had eaten my tomatoes and that he was a horrible dog. Meanwhile, he continued wagging his tail and looking at me as though I was his favorite person in the world, which was infuriating. So I yelled more, and he wagged a bit more, and I had to walk away. Later, as I was pondering the loss of the tomatoes, I related the story to a friend who reminded me that I used to call Simba toxic. I chuckled at this because I remember how that thinking came to be. At the end of a long day at the office, I would come home and he would jump and run and lick and ask for me to give him attention and lovin's, and I found myself feeling like I had nothing left to give. So he kept asking for attention, and he would whine and he'd jump and leap and get more excited, and the more I pushed him away, the more excited he got. Of course, I hadn't figured out that I had it backwards. He wasn't asking me to give him anything. He was offering me all the love and affection in the entire universe, encapsulated into a medium-sized body that ran, bounded, and ate tomatoes when he wasn't supposed to. Yes, you. As I left the house to continue tending the realm, Simba was right there, running up the driveway and back down, and up the driveway and back down, and up the driveway and back down again. And it reminded me of when I first brought him home, and he discovered that horses lived here too. He would run into the pasture and sit and observe the horses grazing. And one day, he got up and started eating the grass, just like the horses. It was hilarious, because he would bend over and grab the grass, and then shake his head, and then look at the horses as though he was asking them why on earth they were eating this. And he continued to watch, though, and eventually decided on a compromise, which was very wise of him. He would only actually eat grass if his tummy felt bad, but other times he would pretend to eat the grass because he thought he was a horse. Then he would drink from the puddles and run with the horses. He even learned to run in the same cadence as the horses. So to this day, he runs across the deck. He sounds just like a horse cantering up the road. Cantering up the road. I used to sing a song about that when I was a young teenager, but that's a story for another time. Simba soon discovered that there was nutritional value in the horse's fertilizer offerings. He decided that he would add this to his endless curiosity of eating sticks and nearly anything else in the vicinity that could be consumed, including tomatoes. Initially, when I saw him consuming horse hockeys, horse apples, or for the more obvious listeners, shit, and eat them, I was appalled. It reminded me of the statistics I heard about all the rocks children consume, and it was horrifying. Eventually, I realized that no matter how thoroughly I was disgusted, Simba wasn't, and that he was going to find a way to consume whatever he wanted to consume, including tomatoes. Eventually, came to realize that maybe this was his way of eating his vegetables. It reminded me of toddlers, or any human on the planet. When they aren't confined by rules, what choices do they eventually make? But I digress. There was a day that determined my relationship with Simba forever. I mean, forever. Forever. All the critters, Wilgo, Mistala, and Simba were in the pasture chilling, and I had just gotten home, removed the formal attire, and was sitting on the porch trying to let the days slide out of my awareness. And there they all were, relaxing. After Simba had his 5-trip up and down the driveway run, Wilgo had let everything hang free. This means, as a gelding, that everything was exposed for the entire world to see. Mistala was grazing nearby, also calm and dignified as she typically is, with the exception of 1 week out of the month where she becomes a bit more affectionate with Wilgo. And there was Simba, licking. Now, I'm not sure what YouTube will allow for rules here, so I will not describe what he was licking, but he was licking it. Wilgo's relaxed appendage. Ew. His, thing. So, not only did he eat horse apples, but licking, well, that day, I realized that dogs have a different set of standards than humans. They lick themselves, which I imagine is the same as us washing ourselves. They eat readily available things, often grazing, as we do, like eating chips. Only dogs find a distinct pleasure in eating other types of chips and tomatoes. And they lick the private areas of other animals. So therefore, despite the standards set by other friends who have talked about their affectionate dog kisses, I determined that I would never, ever, never in my life allow Simba to lick my face ever again. Of course, that did not stop Simba's insistence that he be allowed to continue kissing. He had decided that that was an important part of our relationship. In fact, He became much more adamant and forceful when I denied him access to his face, or to my face. During this transition, I came to realize what I had seen as toxicity was in fact love. Pure, unconditional, and perfectly dog-like love. For years, I called Simba toxic. I couldn't understand why something so full of joy made me want to push them away. And looking back, I don't think Simba was the problem. My nervous system simply didn't know how to receive any kind of love, or that kind of love in particular. Every day he greeted me as though I was the best thing that had ever happened to him. Every day he forgave me before I asked. Every day he came back wagging his tail. It wasn't that he loved me too much. It was that I couldn't yet believe that I was okay enough to receive it. So maybe the realm is showing us how to receive after all. Have you ever had an animal teach you something you didn't realize you needed to learn? I'd love to hear about it. See you on the next one.